Welcome to the fifth Sunday of this season of Easter. And let's all listen to the gospel reading for this day, which comes from the 14th chapter of the book of John. Jesus said to his friends, his disciples, all gathered together in the upper room, "Do not let your hearts be troubled. Believe in God. Believe also in me. In my Father's house there are many dwelling places. If it were not so, would I have told you that I go to prepare a place for you? And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and will take you to myself, so that where I am, there you may also be." And you know the way, Jesus said. You know the way to the place where I'm going. But Thomas interrupted and he said, "No, Lord, we do not know where you are going. How can we know the way?" And Jesus said, "I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." Philip then said, "Lord, show us the Father, and we will be satisfied." And Jesus said, "Have I been with you all this time, Philip, and you still do not know me? How can you say, 'Show us the Father'?" I can kind of picture Jesus thinking, "What more can I do? What more can I say?" Well, with that, let me say Happy Mother's Day and scrape away a little of the frost, the early morning frost that we got this morning and perhaps tomorrow morning. Welcome to an Ohio spring. And I wish we had flowers to give out to all the mothers and the women here, but we have something else. We have face masks. So if you come by the church, you can sort through the basket and find yourself some colorful masks to be styling. Happy Mother's Day. I think Jesus would smile at our cultural holiday to honor mothers, but I venture to say that he would waste little time zeroing in on focusing on the ideals that are at the core of how this holiday came about. How it all started in the early 1900s. In every corner of our land, women like Ann Jarvis knew that women were forming clusters, organized groups, and discovering their voice. And when they have a voice, not just mothers, but all when women and mothers get together, they form consensus pretty quickly around essential cornerstone of life issues. I think Jesus would add to the spotlight upon mothers united for those issues, those core issues that reliably are things like justice for the defenseless, especially children and youth, the end of war, conflicts that take sons away from their mothers, children living in poverty, domestic abuse, the use of alcohol and senseless gambling that tear up the fabric of home life, cornerstone of life. Jesus would smile at the candy and the cards and the flowers, but help us to remember that that's just the wrapping paper. But inside of that is this gratitude and celebration. Oh, how good it is to celebrate the strength of women and what justice looks like through the eyes of mothers. what the world looks like when mothers and women's voices are heard. What's the way? What are the words of the disciples? What's the way forward? We're confused. When we read John's Gospel in the 14th chapter, we find Jesus with his friends gathered in the upper room. Jesus knows that in moments he'll be arrested and tried and crucified. They don't know, but they sense they're on the brink of a crisis. What's the way? What's the truth? What's the life? Mothers' concerns would begin with building and nurturing good homes, good, healthy communities that include education and health themes, built upon the solid rock and cornerstones of faith. And here is a strength that I associate with mothers, 3 in particular in my life: my mother, my mother-in-law, and the woman who I was privileged to be alongside when she became a mother, my wife, Beth. And what's that strength? 3 words. They chose joy. Each different in their passions, and I would imagine for you too, a whole range of different callings and different passions of those significant women in our lives. Different callings and purposes, but when between a rock and a hard place, these ones chose joy. What does that mean for a family that's between a rock and a hard place? When there's not enough on one side with crying children on the other. You're between a rock and a hard place. When there's not enough hands, but the needs are great, you're between a rock and a hard place. When you can't catch enough sleep, but the day's upon you and the demand's severe, you're between the rock of fatigue and a hard place of homework help or earning extra income or keeping a struggling relationship alive. We start out life with those multitasking, focused people we call mothers, teachers, aunts, grandmothers. And for me, and in my experience, they chose joy. My mother's joy. The Millie laugh. Oh, it's a big laugh, and it's famous in my extended family. She had an eye for beauty, creating beauty, beautiful events, home, clothing, and the love of music and history. I would wake up in the morning grumpy to hear my mother singing "Dream a Little Dream of Me." Stars shining bright above you. Night breezes seem to whisper, "I love you." Birds singing in the sycamore trees. Dream a little dream of me. And we would groan. Oh, we were not wanting to hear this kind of joy in the early morning. But that big laugh defies our groans of life between a rock and a hard place. It's funny, I went out and I found myself a partner with a big laugh. You hang out with Beth Moody Weisbrod and you'll hear it. Different passions, purposes, and calls. For her, it's more about being connected to every person, every part of our community, the whole world being viewed as precious and full of possibility. That's a justice thing, but even more so, it's a relationship thing. And whenever Beth is engaged with finding new friends, friends from all walks of life and all kinds of places, crossing boundaries, you know that they are choosing joy. And Beth's mom, my mother-in-law, that's where Beth got her big laugh from, I think. And her mom, Ruth Deaver Moody, presiding over a life of discovering joy through maybe delayed gratification endeavors like how to plant a garden in order to enjoy the fruits of that around the dinner table, or learning to sew or do tapestry, or getting an extra job to take the family into a world far beyond the boundaries we normally cross. So do these sentiments that you share with women that you honor, do they share also a focus that Jesus reliably brings? Thank you, moms. Thank you, moms and women united by common concern for what is most needful in formative times, in troubled times. Women, you ask any woman, why do you suppose on Easter morning, when all are in crisis, it is the women who God chooses to reveal resurrection joy? We guys be like, I don't know. But women be like, hello? Well, let's go more into this survival kit that the scriptures have for us today of life in living life between a rock and a hard place.